Now let's just get right to it. Hi, this is Wicked. That stands for What You Can Do. My name is Jake. We got to address the elephant in the daycare. You may have noticed that the right wing cannot stop projecting. Projecting is when you accuse somebody else of something, but you yourself are doing it. That is because right wingers know they're a bunch of diddlers. There's a collection of articles from the Daily Cause. That's daily spelled normal, cause spelled K-O-S. Kadja Lilyhook has done 39 lists of right-wingers caught in some manner of sexual abuse. I thought you should have a look at the most recent. Now, we already know about Jim Jordan. We already know about Matt Gaetz, for example, trafficking a child for sex, which I will keep. I'll keep saying on this channel until he gets the balls to sue me, and then we can have discovery in court and put it all out there for the American public. Perhaps you didn't know that Donald Trump was friends with Jeffrey Epstein. I mean, I'm sure you did, but let's just play devil's advocate. Perhaps you didn't know. Perhaps you didn't know that he wished Ghislaine Maxwell well. That's Jeffrey Epstein's partner. Perhaps you didn't know that Donald Trump mentioned that Jeffrey Epstein liked him young. Welcome to the real world, if that's you finding out. But what so few people do seem to know is that there are a ton of right-wingers that engage in child predation and just generally sexually awful behavior. They accuse trans people of this because they rely on their voters being dumb enough to just listen to what they say without ever questioning it. And they are right. But you got to know the scope of this problem. The left wing is uncomfortable talking about this stuff. Rightly so. We don't like dwelling on gross things, I guess. But the fact remains, it's a serious issue. The more right-wing somebody is, the more likely they are to be a diddler. Here's a list from this Daily Cause most recent article of just a bunch of all the flavors of right-winger that are engaged in sexual abuse. Here's Warren Jeffs, a fundamentalist Mormon extremist who did the rape of many children, too horrific to recount. To make sure they weren't making it up, I did look it up. They're right. It's too horrific to recount. You can look up this guy if you want. He was sentenced to life in prison plus 20 years. This story is just too awful. Yeah, I agree. It is awful. And, real nightmare stuff. Here's Michael Scott Langdon of Ferndale, Washington. He was a police officer that was, of course, fired. After he tried to join... let me be clear. He wasn't fired for trying to join the Oath Keepers after the insurrection, but he did try to join a terrorist group after they tried to overthrow the country. Great guy. He contacted a woman he met as a witness on the job and asked her to bring her 12-year-old child for the two of them to have sex with him. That's what Officer Michael Langdon did. Right-winger, extremist. More right-wing you are, the more likely you are to be a diddler. Republican Congressman James Comer of Kentucky, he was accused by a former girlfriend of domestic violence. Bear in mind that if you are right-wing, you are very unlikely to actually be held accountable for anything, including nightmare sexual practices. Nathan Larson, a far white supremacist libertarian, he's an advocate of pedophilia. He was arrested for grooming and kidnapping. Let me just underline that, grooming and kidnapping a 12-year-old girl. He died in federal custody, by the way, under mysterious circumstances. I wonder if he could have named some names. Hey, James Mason. He's a white nationalist. He created child sexual exploitation materials and RAPED, minor girls. Real classic right-wing stuff right there. Hey, here's another Terry getting froggy. John Cameron Denton, a former anti-waffle leader, I know I said it wrong, accused of sharing child pornography. That group, the Adam Waffen, is a neo-Nazi group. Speaking of, Stephen Parshall of the Boogaloo Boys, he was indicted for a terrorist plot in Nevada, and he pleaded guilty to 2 counts of sexual exploitation of children, a count of coercion and enticement, and a count of receipt and distribution of child pornography. Let's get a little festive. Here's a guy that played too much Skyrim and changed his name to Jarl Rockhill. He's associated with Patriot Prayer and a neo-Nazi who committed bias crime at IRCO. He was a registered sex offender, of course. Oh, there's my picture of Merrick Garland. Just want to remind everybody he's a little punk, but let's move on. Jesse Schenck of California, part of the Goyim Defense League of anti-Semites. He was arrested for soliciting a minor. It was a police officer in a sting pretending to be 14 and sending pornography to a minor. The more right-wing you are, the more likely you are to be a diddler. Let's just blast through some of these because it's a good long list. Let's group it by terrorists. Alexander Hillel Treisman of Washington was arrested for a terrorist plot in North Carolina that included plans to assassinate Joe Biden. In search of his van, authorities found his plans and child pornography on 8 different devices. Robert Lee West of Portland, Oregon. He's an associate of the Portland, Oregon Patriot Prayer, and he has stalked and doxed police and the district attorney. He was convicted of RAPE/mayhem in California. Kyle Broussard, Patriot Prayer associate, convicted of RAPE 3. Oh boy. Well, hey, maybe we're being too mean to terrorists. Let's go on to another group of right-wing extremists, the good old-fashioned pastors. Jonathan Myers, youth pastor in Edinburgh, Indiana, and Christian school principal, of course, has been charged with child molestation and grooming. Timothy Jason, Geltema, Texas youth pastor, of course, at Southern Baptist Church, pleaded guilty to sexting a minor. Well, at least he's using modern technology. Ryan Scott Walsh of Gulf Breeze, Florida, a youth pastor, sexually assaulting a child. Youth pastor Trent Ivy at Vestal Baptist Church in South Knox, Tennessee, has been charged with sexual battery of 2 young girls. Michael Paul Keach, Southern Baptist youth pastor in South Carolina, accused of sexual abuse of a child. Thomas James Brackett, once a youth pastor in Baltimore, arrested in South Carolina, where he is now a pastor and will be extradited to Maryland to face charges of criminal sexual conduct with minors. How so many years passed without him being arrested is a disgrace, says the article, and I agree. Well, that's all the pastors, but of course I'm kidding. There's way more. Youth pastor Sean Patrick Massapost of Northridge Assembly of God, anti-gay church, pled guilty and will be sentenced January 2023, hey, coming on up, for sexual relationship with a minor. Michael DeToma, South Carolina Baptist pastor, grooming, child molestation. Sean M. Higgins, youth pastor in Palmyra, New Jersey, online sexual exploitation of children, extortion images. The more right-wing you are, the more likely you are to be a diddler. Kenneth Baker of Ashland, Oregon, youth pastor, charged with 4 felonies and 2 misdemeanors involving a minor child, sentenced to 10.5 years. Peter Bass, Oregon youth pastor, was sentenced to 33 years for multiple counts of RAPE of an underage minor. This is what these people do. Central Point, Oregon, youth pastor. What is going on in Oregon? Dear God. Youth pastor Dustin Colony Herrera sexually abusing children in California. Oh, excuse me. There we are. Pled no contest. Of course. That's, if you don't know, that's when the evidence is so stacked, so clear that you don't say that you're guilty, but you say you can't fight it. And you ask the court to go easy on you. And if you're right-wing, they usually go extremely easy on you. District Court Judge Karen Townsend sentenced Herrera on May 26 to 2 6-year prison sentences, which were suspended in favor of 5 years of sex offender probation. So we have 2 huge problems here. Number one is, of course, the standard Justice Department does not know. Ooh, let's go to A. There we are. Justice Department is incapable of holding right-wingers accountable, of taking them seriously as the threat that they are. Republicans are bad guys. There it is, plain and simple. They have no one's best interest in mind except their own. And not even that entirely. Sometimes they're literally the just want to see the world burn types. So what can you do? This is, of course, wicked. Stands for what you can do. Well, let's start with if you are a right-winger, and this has been your wake-up call. First of all, congratulations on finally having the courage to be serious about reality that you live in. That's right, the groomers are not on the left. They are very much on the right. It's okay. There's something you can do about it. Stop voting. I mean, I don't know what to tell you, man. If you've been supporting the right wing in the last 10 years, where it's been just with the power of the internet so abundantly clear who's doing what, if you've still been a supporter of the right wing, you're too dumb to vote. What do you hope to gain from voting? You hope to gain a country where there's money in your pocket, where there's no potholes on the roads, where an average person has a fair shot at becoming a rich person, where Americans are safe. That's what you hope, hopefully, to get from voting. The people you've been working against will get that for you. But you're too dumb. You're not, even if you're thinking, gosh, I can't believe it, but I'm going to vote Democrat. I mean, I've been supporting diddlers for the last 10 years. That was wrong. I should start voting Democrat. Don't even do that. There's nothing, it's not illegal to be dumb. It's not even immoral to be dumb. But you got to be honest about the fact that you are dumb. You're going to support the wrong Democrats. You're going to find yourself saying, I'm all for Nancy Pelosi. Or whatever her equivalent is, as she is retiring, thank Christ. You're just not bright enough to make these decisions. You got to accept that. If you want to save face in front of your scumbag pals, because for some reason you still want to be friends with a gang of diddlers, you can just say that you don't believe in elections anymore and just sort of hush up whenever people start talking about politics. You know, you can do that. That's how you can save face. Most likely, because this is the sort of video you watch if you're not burying your heads in the sand, which is what, yeah, it's the Republican strategy. That means you're a left-winger. So what can you do about all this, about all these diddlers on the right wing? Well, step one, obviously, vote in primaries and go as left as you can, because the farther left you go, the more likely you are to be serious about actually solving America's problems. The less corruption you see, the farther left people go. Far left candidates aren't even perfect. Not even making that claim. I'm just talking about seriousness of solving America's problems. Left-wingers are more likely to actually arrive at a reasonable solution. Do that. The other thing, the today thing, every time someone in your group of associates, God help you if it's a relative or a coworker or someone that is necessarily around you a lot. But to address the elephant in the daycare, whenever they start running their mouths about trans people, point them to the Daily Cause list of articles. I'll link the most recent in the description. I'll also link the collection in the description. Just say, here's a list of a bunch of politically active sexual predators. Those are the baddies. Why will this be effective? Number one, the sheer weight of numbers is hard to argue with. Number two, perhaps more importantly, they need to know we see them. That's the reason I was putting those pictures up as part of this little rant. They need to know they are seen. It's real hard for right-wing extremists to keep being right-wing extremists in the light of day. Left-wingers don't like talking about diddlers because we do not use politics as therapy. We don't use it to project our own shortcomings onto people. But that doesn't mean we can ignore genuine problems like this. The fact that Matt Gaetz is not in handcuffs right now for what he did to a child in 2019. Child prostitution. That can't continue. It's got to get handled. After his litany of other crimes are addressed, we also need to address Donald Trump's likely involvement with Jeffrey Epstein. I know it seems like wild conspiracy stuff, but the facts are on the table. The guy clearly had knowledge of what was going on. The guy clearly covered for other right-wingers. The guy supported Roy Moore after it turned out that Roy Moore solicited a bunch of teens, underage kids, for sex, or at least stories came out that he did that. Donald Trump still supported the guy. He's running defense. We need to address that. This has been an incredibly depressing episode of Wicked. I'm going to try to find a way to make it light, but we got to address this stuff. Get to it, folks. I will do my part as well. Thank you for joining me for this episode. It's been your old pal Jake, and this is What You Can Do.
Look, I've been up since like 3 a.m. I don't hear the hate, what y'all say ain't in. All I know is go, all I know is grind. I'm on your head, all I know is climb. Just know I'm different. If I see the target, just know I'm gon' hit it. I don't know the fake, just know I live it. Anything I say, just know I'm in it. I know